cómo es que un hongo habla.
Please welcome our moderator for Story Sovereignty, Filmmaker Spotlight, Leah Thomas, and our panelists to the stage.
Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing? Good. I'm good. After I saw those 2 films, those 2 teasers, I'm so excited. You all are so talented. Would you all please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your projects to kick us off?
Okay. Hi, I'm Quannah ChasingHorse. I'm 23, and in 3 days I'll be 24. I am an advocate, land protector, water protector, climate warrior, as many of us in this space are. I am also a model, but overall I am a daughter to my amazing mother who's here, and I am a community member. I am working on Beautiful Resistance that you guys got to see a teaser of. I'm really excited. We're in pre-production, but it's a new thing for me. I'm going to be a co-director. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and to talk with these amazing ladies.
Hi, it's an honor to be with you guys, Leah, Quannah. I'm Otilla Portillo. I'm director of Daughters of the Forest. It's a finished film. It premiered at CPH Docs in main competition, and it premiered. The North American premiere was at South by Southwest, where it won the Audience Award, which was very unexpected. I'm just very happy to be here and be able to talk about other forms of narrative. So thank you.
They're both so great. I'm in awe to be next to both of you all. But we'll start with a question about Daughters of the Forest, because it blends sci-fi, which is my favorite genre, elements with documentary storytelling in such an intriguing way. And though many sci-fi films are, apocalyptic, which is probably what I don't always love about the genre, you chose this topic and the focus on mushrooms to kind of counteract this disaster narrative that we see so often. So why were mushrooms and this specific Indigenous community your inspiration to make this documentary? And why did you add the cool sci-fi elements to it? I hope we get more of that in films like this.
I mean, I was at the morning. I was in the talk, and it was about hopeful sci-fi. What would hopeful sci-fi be? So it's a very interesting round to think about what other people in fiction are doing in terms of how we imagine the future. So this film actually, instead of starting with mushrooms, started with Ursula K. Le Guin, which is a writer who brings another perspective on sci-fi. She wrote this essay called The Carrier-Back Theory of Fiction, in which she says that although she really loves the hero journey, she felt it didn't identify her experience, as a grandmother, and so she felt that what would a carrier-back story look like, and that the first human tool was a carrier bag and not a sword. So basically, this movie starts with imagining what a carrier-back story could be and what its shape would be like. And what best than mushrooms, which already are pretty sci-fi, which people say they come from space, and they're already invisible and all around us, we just can't see them. So then to discover what this hopeful sci-fi would look like.
I love that so much. And we're also talking about another show that we really enjoyed, Common Side Effects, if anyone's seen it. Yay, mushrooms. Okay, one person, love it. Quannah, question for you. So you are stepping into the co-director role for the first time with your upcoming documentary, Beautiful Resistance. Why do you think it's important to not only center Indigenous stories, solutions, and issues in film, but also have Indigenous creators leading your storytelling process? Because I will say there have been a lot of incredible projects that I've seen, but they're not always directed by Indigenous folks?
Yes, I love this question because I don't think it gets asked enough. As an Indigenous person, we're so used to having our stories being told for us. And when we see these versions of us, it's usually from a different perspective. It's not our perspective. And a lot of the time, there's a lot of misunderstandings and misinterpretations and misrepresentation. And as an Indigenous person, to be in this position, to be a co-director on a film about my people, about what we're struggling with, what we're going through, and to also be someone that can uplift other Indigenous people in this work, it's so important. And reclaiming our identities and our stories, there's so much work to do in film in regards to representation in like an authentic way, not just to check a box, not because, we fit whatever narrative or whatever stereotype that they want to put us in, right? We don't fit in any of those boxes. But for us to be truly authentic and to share it from our perspective is so important because not only are we able to reach people in a way that is rehumanizing us, but it also allows people to not just like, because we see appropriation everywhere. We see our ideas and our, different beautiful parts of our culture being taken from us. And even in the climate space, we see and hear a lot of like sound bites. And a lot of these things are native teachings, but no one talks about that. No one addresses or acknowledges where these things come from. And so as an Indigenous person, to be a co-director, to tell this story, it's not only like, why is this a thing now? Like, why are we like, woo, finally, like this should have been a thing for a long time. We should have been able to be telling our own stories. But we just didn't always have the resources to do so. And so not only am I able to honor my people and do it the right way, and not only like share our teachings, but also like it gives us the opportunity to not be a monolith. Like when you think of Native Americans, you have a very specific idea of them in your mind because of Hollywood, because of, old Western movies and shows and whatever. Like you have a very specific, stereotype of Native Americans. And, every tribe, every nation is different. We all have different practices, but the thing is we all kind of live by the same values systems, right? And so it's so important that we are able to be the ones to share these things and tell these stories because it allows us to reclaim, a lot of the things that we lost through colonization, but also allows for people like me, to actually honor my people in the right way and make sure that my elders and the youth are hearing me and seeing me, feeling heard and seen and feeling powerful and empowered to, tell their stories.
Thank you so much. And I think going off script, another quick question for you. So oftentimes I'll see very well-intentioned people in the environmental space, and this is probably a question for both of you all. When they talk about Indigenous peoples, sometimes it's almost like they'll be like, oh, we need to return back to a time where this was happening, etc. And the world was a lush Eden back then, and we need to return to that. But they don't break it down and talk about the impacts of colonization and things like that. How can people show appreciation towards Indigenous peoples and reverence without tokenizing them or tokenizing their practices and extracting their practices? And that's basically the next question.
I love that. I was actually just thinking about tokenization and also like, right before this, we came up here, we heard, them bring up adaptability. Native Americans, Indigenous people in general are professionals, in adaptation. We've been forced to adapt over time because of colonization. This is all foreign to us. So a lot of these things, like we've had to learn how to exist in very uncomfortable systems that aren't built for us to succeed, aren't built for us to, thrive. Many of us are just surviving, not actually thriving, So that's something that I think a lot of people forget. And as you said, there are really well-intentioned people in the climate space, but they always end up being extractive, and that's the thing that I always talk about is like, you can have the best intention, but you have to make sure that the impact is what you're most concerned about. Everyone's like, well, my intention was in the right place. And I'm like, okay, but did you think about how that would impact the people in the community that you want to support? Because at the end of the day, you might have actually done more harm because you're not allowing these people to tell you exactly what they need. If you gave us the opportunity to tell you exactly what we need, how to show up for us, then it would be so much easier. But people automatically assume and don't give space for us to tell that and to be able to have our own voices, So, I mean, I could go on and on. There's so many things I could ramble on about in this specific topic, but I'm sure she also has some good points she wants to make.
I don't know if you've come across this beautiful anthology called Walking the Clouds, which is Indigenous sci-fi, and there's even an interview in which they ask the person that recopilates all this Indigenous sci-fi, and I don't know if you identify with it, but the person says that they're not interested so much in dystopic futures because they've already lived through an apocalypse. They always like almost a lot of indigenous groups were already at the brink of extinction. So like dystopic sci-fi wasn't really what they had in mind because they've been through that already. And when I think, I mean, we worked in deep collaboration with two communities. One are the Tlahuica Piejaco, which are in Mexico State, and the other ones are a community in Oaxaca. They're both indigenous mycologists, so they have their own ancestral knowledge, but they also bridge between Western academic science and there was an acknowledgement that both things could be in conversation with one another. And I mean, I personally, we worked in collaboration, but it was about, that there were complex, about tokenism, they were complex, they work in the intersection, they're not just one thing, they were also in academia, they have the dreams that some people have, like the mundane, they want to either go study a PhD or make a living, and just more nuanced protagonists.
I also just want to quickly add, like, in regards to tokenization and also trying to avoid that, how can you be a better community member to avoiding that? There's so many different, like I said, we're not all a monolith. All Native Americans aren't the same. How can you be so sure, when you hire one Native to make sure that, oh, this one Native knows everything and is going to honor everybody? That just doesn't make sense. So like making sure that you're actually, doing some outreach and learning about different communities, and also like a simple thing, like knowing whose land you're on. I mean, how many people even actually know whose land we're on today? Yes, thank you. Tongva, Chumash, Gabrielino. There's, yes, thank you. So it's just like knowing whose land you're on, simple. It's not that hard. You could look it up. But also, like, start somewhere. And starting somewhere means start in your community. You don't have to be like, oh, I have to support this big thing and I have to, do this and do that. Like, if you want to make a difference and stop tokenizing and actually learn, you have to do that within your own community. And it's possible. There are people in your community who want you to be a part of this movement. You just have to find them, and you have to do the work to learn about it so you can properly do the work to advocate in a good way.
Give it up. We're not done, but both of those answers deserve a clap. Okay, Otilia. Something that stood out to me about your film was how you told a beautiful story that was, you're kind of balancing Indigenous wisdom with the pursuit of science and the importance of generational knowledge. So this kind of touches on like traditional ecological knowledge as well as like how that intersects with science. Can you tell the audience a bit more about what it was like to experience those moments firsthand and why it was important to tell that story?
Yeah, well, one thing I want to touch on is that Indigenous knowledge is a science. And the other one is, like academic, Western sort of school science. Yeah. But like what we try to do in this film is try to like not put them as antagonizing forces, but in this case, in these two roles, they're complementary. Yeah. both worlds could coexist. Julie could be with a microscope saying that she was studying a holy being, and at the same time practicing taxonomy on one, and that there was no contradiction. And I thought, we're just witnessing that, and I do see myself, and even though I'm Mexican, and I do see myself as an outsider in the sense that I'll never fully grasp what the bridging between both worlds is. You know, I was just trying to be very respectful and very in awe of the way they can articulate both worlds without a contradiction that maybe for me would be completely opposing forces. And the same with Lise, who learned mostly anything not only from her academic teachers, but her main teacher was her grandmother.
Thank you. Quannah, so another question for you. The story Beautiful Resistance, love the name, by the way, is telling an extremely timely and urgent, sorry, there's a little typo. It's highlighting a race to save sacred and important land in the Arctic from extractive industries. And the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is opening up to oil and gas leases in just 2 days from now.
The day before my birthday.
Absolutely not. So what can we do to protect this land today? Because this is urgent. How can people use their voices? What should we do?
Ooh. There's a lot to be done, actually. And, you know, it's not just the Arctic. There's so many sacred lands across the states right now that are under threat. But where I'm from in Alaska, it's called the sacred place where life begins. And that's for a reason. Like, what happens in the Arctic will affect places across the world. Different migratory birds, you know, different species, our migration of caribou that go through Canada and Alaska. Like, there's so many ecosystems, so many animal relatives that are being impacted, and nobody, like, people are talking about it, but I feel like no one really understands how urgent and how scary this reality will be if this is going to happen. Our people know it because we see it and we experience it in our daily lives when we're back at home. And, you know, when outsiders come and tell us, you know, oh, we have to use your sacred lands because we have to, you know, we need oil, like, come on now, like it's 2026. There's so many other options and so many ways, you know. We're at a point in time where we either need to start moving forward and progressing, or are we going to keep regressing and doing harmful things to our planet, which we won't even have a safe future for our children. But it's so urgent. Yes, the lease sales are going to go up on the 5th, just here in a few days. And tomorrow they're going to announce who is going to be bidding on these leases. So, you know, if you want to learn more, I work with the Gwitchin Steering Committee. I've been working with them since I've been a teenager. I've been in DC lobbying. My first time in New York was not even for Fashion Week. It was to talk with financial institutions on not funding the oil and gas industry and trying to get them to pull out. So I've been doing this work for a long time, and it just, like, we keep ending up back in the same place. We need permanent protection. We need everyone to be signing these petitions, to be signing these letters, to be calling their congressmen and women, their senators. Like, we need people to be supporting us in ways that matter, because at the end of the day, if they end up in the Arctic Refuge, it is a hard place to be. It's not like, you know, a South Dakota where everyone could pull up and be there and be on the front lines and support. This is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. So every other way that we can show up, we need everyone. It's urgent, and that's why this story, Beautiful Resistance, is so important, because it rehumanizes our people while telling our story and reclaiming our story, but also showing people what is happening today and how long our people have been fighting. I'm the 4th generation in my tribe to be doing this work. That's too many generations. And I don't want to have to think about my granddaughter, you know, doing this work. That's insane. We deserve clean water, clean air. We deserve to be able to hunt and fish. We can't fish anymore, and I want to be able to hunt, and we almost can't even hunt anymore. So there's so many things that we are feeling that are being impacted, but everyone else isn't, and our whole entire livelihoods are already being, like she said, it is dystopic. It is apocalyptic. Like I said, we've been forced to learn to adapt to these, societal colonial systems. And so being in that position, like beautiful resistance is super, super important, but also like getting to work with another tribe and going down to New Zealand, it's super important because they're also fighting a big battle there, and to be able to bridge that gap and to tell people, hey, this is a common struggle across all Indigenous people. Like, it helps people grasp why Indigenous voices and Indigenous-led actions are so important, because we are at the front lines.
Thank you. And for my last question, Otilia, I was wondering, what story of resilience, climate solutions, or our collective future do you want to tell or see next?
That's a huge story. I mean, there is this thing where we can feel a lot of impotence about the future, and that there's just a sense of despair, and that there's nothing that can be done. And I think what I learned, not only from the incredible adaptability and resilience of mushrooms themselves, like non-human teachers, what I also learned from working with Lisa and Julie is that there is a way small actions do matter. Like, how we behave on an everyday basis matters, how we relate to other people, how we relate to our elders, how we treat our community, how we relate to one another, how we treat the environment. Little actions do matter. And in the grand scheme of things, that there might be the sense that there's nothing that can be done. But I think little actions, I think in that sense, the echoing of like how we narrate stories, how we tell stories matters.
Thank you so much. And I know we're over, but do you have a response to that or any thoughts on that?
No, she ate. I just want to say, because I also wanted to say this when I was talking about the Arctic, gwichinsteering.org. Gwichin, Gwichin, gwichinsteering.org. GWICHIN, gwichinsteering.org. You can sign a letter to support our efforts, and if you have anyone that wants to donate or know people that are doing this work that wants to support, please, we need it. Thank you.
Give it up for these amazing, wonderful activists and people and filmmakers. Thank you so much for having us. Bye.